Royal shock. Queen Letizia's reaction during Leonor's wedding goes viral. It was supposed to be perfect. A royal wedding, flawless, elegant, historic. But then, Queen Letizia's reaction changed everything. A single look. Caught on camera. Now the world can't stop watching. The bells of Copenhagen Cathedral echoed through the crisp northern air, a sound that marked not just a royal union, but the closing of a chapter in Spain's modern monarchy. Princess Leonor of Spain, the future queen, stood radiant, poised, and breathtakingly regal beside her Danish groom, Prince Christian. Cameras flashed, choirs sang, and the world watched as history unfolded. But amid the golden light of stained glass and royal ceremony, one reaction would steal the show. Not the bride's, not the groom's, but Queen Letizia's. What began as a proud mother's moment of joy quickly spiraled into a viral storm, one that the palace never saw coming. At first glance, Queen Letizia seemed composed, graceful as ever. Her gown, a masterpiece of Spanish couture, shimmered subtly beneath the cathedral's vaulted ceiling. She smiled, she clapped, she nodded in quiet approval. But then came that moment. As Leonor turned to exchange vows with Prince Christian, a camera panned to Letizia, and for the briefest second, something flickered across her face. A tightening of the jaw. A glimmer of emotion, some called it pride, others called it pain. That tiny moment, captured from a dozen angles, spread across social media like wildfire. Millions replayed it, slowed it down, dissected every blink and sigh. Was it sadness, regret, or a mother's silent goodbye to the daughter who had just stepped fully into her royal destiny? Body language experts from Madrid to London claimed that Letizia's reaction revealed a complex storm of emotion, pride, love, and perhaps even a trace of fear. Fear that Leonor's life, from this day forward, was no longer her own. Insiders close to Zarzuela Palace hinted that the queen had been unusually quiet in the weeks leading up to the wedding. One aide whispered, she smiled, yes, but she carried something heavy behind her eyes. To understand that reaction, you must go back, far back, to the beginning of Letizia's royal journey. Once a journalist, a woman of the people, Letizia entered the royal world as an outsider. Her rise to queen was never an easy path. She endured scrutiny, criticism, and endless comparisons to those born royal. And yet, she stood firm. She redefined what it meant to be a queen in the modern world, elegant, educated, and fiercely protective of her daughters. That protectiveness became her defining trait. Those close to the family describe her relationship with Leonor as intensely close. Not just mother and daughter, but mentor and mirror. Letizia guided Leonor through every public appearance, every speech, every decision that would shape her as a future monarch. So when the wedding bells rang, and Leonor stepped forward, no longer as the young princess she had raised, but as a married woman, a royal figure in her own right, Letizia's heart must have felt both pride and loss. During the ceremony, witnesses say Letizia barely blinked. Her gaze stayed fixed on Leonor, studying her, memorizing her. Every gesture, every word. When Leonor's voice trembled as she said her vows, Letizia's hand moved subtly to her heart, a gesture unnoticed by most in the cathedral, but magnified in slow motion online. The world interpreted it as emotion, perhaps even heartbreak. But those close to the queen say it was something deeper, the realization that Leonor was no longer her little girl. And then came the reception, a glittering affair at Christiansborg Palace, where Spain's and Denmark's royal families mingled beneath chandeliers of gold. When the newlyweds took their first dance, King Felipe raised his glass. Cameras caught him wiping a tear from his eye. Letizia, by contrast, sat still. Composed. Almost too composed. Then, as Leonor rested her head against Christian's shoulder, Letizia looked away. For a fraction of a second, her face unreadable. That single glance became the viral image of the night. A queen, dignified, restrained, but undeniably human. She's heartbroken. She's proud. She's realizing she's losing her daughter to another royal family. Each interpretation more dramatic than the last. But beneath the noise, there was truth, a quiet truth about what it means to be royal, and what it costs. Letizia had always known this day would come. Leonor was destined not just for a crown, but for duty, one that would someday separate her from home, from Spain, and even from the woman who raised her to bear that weight. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't sadness alone. It was recognition, the bittersweet awareness that her role as mother was shifting forever. After the wedding, palace sources noted a rare moment between mother and daughter. As the cameras turned away, Letizia embraced Leonor in private, long, tight, and silent. Witnesses said Leonor whispered something that made Letizia close her eyes and smile through tears. No microphones caught the words. But those who saw it said it was a goodbye, but also a promise. Millions shared clips of Letizia's reaction under captions like, "Every mother's pain, a queen's hidden tears," and "the moment the world forgot she was human." It wasn't scandalous. It wasn't controversial. It was simply real. A reminder that behind the diamonds, behind the protocol, behind the centuries-old titles, there was a mother. Watching her firstborn step into a life that she could neither shield nor soften. And in that realization lies the heart of the story. Because Queen Letizia's reaction wasn't just about Leonor's wedding, it was about legacy. About every sacrifice she had made to raise a daughter worthy of the throne. About every night she stayed awake preparing Leonor for a destiny she herself could never fully understand. For Letizia, the wedding wasn't an ending. It was a transition, a surrender of control, a release of love into the hands of fate. In the days that followed, while tabloids spun headlines of "Queen's Tears" and "Royal Rift," the truth emerged quietly. The Queen returned to Madrid with her usual poise. She resumed her duties, smiling for the cameras, standing beside her husband, the picture of grace. But in private, those close to her say she often replays the ceremony footage, not the vows, not the kiss, but the moment Leonor looked back down the aisle after the ceremony. Their eyes met, just for a heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, everything was said. So, what was Queen Letizia's reaction really about? It was love. Pure, maternal, unfiltered love, caught between pride and pain. The love of a woman who once cradled a baby in her arms, now watching that same girl walk into her own destiny. It was a moment that united every mother watching around the world. Because no crown, no title, no royal lineage can change that simple, universal truth. Letting go is never easy. And that is why Queen Letizia's reaction went viral. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. Because for one fleeting second, the world didn't see a queen. They saw a mother, and in her eyes, they saw themselves.